Hey fam, I'm Mel. You know, I've been thinking, how great would it be to have a time machine? Not to witness historic events or bet on sports or change things, no, none of that. I mean to buy games. Rare ones. You know, the ones that cost $400 on eBay or the ones you drive hours for to God knows where to a random store on a roll of the dice to try and find one for less than you would otherwise. Yeah, those ones. Maybe one day I'll have my own time machine and go buy whatever games I want. If only. Oh! Despite all our differing opinions, I'm pretty sure there's a few games out there that we can all come together and consider classics of their genre. Games like Mega Man X, because X4 and X5 and X6 and X7 and X8 are not very good. Ocarina of Time, one of my favorite games of all time, or hell, even Bayonetta 2. But when it comes to JRPGs, among all the big name titles like Final Fantasy, one game constantly pops up. That's Chrono Trigger. Look, I'm not going to sit here and pretend this is some grand controversial topic, nor am I going to pretend you don't already know the answer. Yes, Chrono Trigger is excellent. Probably one of the greatest games of all time. And even if you haven't played it, you've probably heard how magnificent it is, just based on how every video out there is just praise upon praise for the game, and they're all right. So, Chrono Trigger came out early into Squaresoft's peak in the 90s, when every game they released was an instant classic for the Super Nintendo and PS1. Games like Final Fantasy VI, Final Fantasy VII, my beloved Xenogears, and Secret of Mana. No, maybe not that one. Chrono Trigger originally released back in 1995 for the Super Nintendo, though I don't have the Super Nintendo one because it's extremely expensive. And I forgot to hit record on that one, so we're just gonna move on like it never happened. In 2001, it was ported to the PS1 along with Final Fantasy IV under Final Fantasy Chronicles. But in 2008, they remastered the game with some extra content, especially a post-game for the DS. This version is the one that's on PC and mobile, the latter of which I used to record. Don't judge me, I was on a trip. Full disclosure, this isn't my first playthrough of Chrono Trigger. Back during my first semester of college in 2017, one of my professors actually assigned us to play both Chrono Trigger and Super Metroid as part of the class. Not exactly to test us, but he just wanted us to play them. I played through most of it, but never finished it because the universe had other plans. Throughout the years though, I did try to pick it back up, but for whatever reason never could. But this time, I made it a point to not just finish it, but finish everything. Side quests and little things included. And I have to say, I do not recommend you do that. For the most part. That gold swinging pendulum followed by the title moving into frame is the iconic start of this game. As the intro plays, we are given a taste of what we're in for. Classic RPG overworlds with villages to explore, people to talk to in every town, monsters, swords, and of course, time shenanigans. It's in the title. On the fateful day of the Millennial Fair, Chrono, the main character, is awoken by his mother. After being told to behave, he travels north of his home in truce to the fair. There's a few mini-games to play around with, as much as you'd like. You can bet on races, you can visit Biggs and Wedge from Final Fantasy VI after being Valagarmanded across dimensions. Yes, this is true. There's even that dinging bell mallet game thing that's in every American fair. You know the one. When you enter the north area though, a girl with yellow hair will bump into Chrono. This is Marl. She'll follow Chrono for the time being, and your actions from this moment will matter later on. With Marl tagging along, a few new things become available for you to do. You can chug soda, or you can dance, or you can try out the combat if you didn't go into the forest before. Never mind. Soon enough, you're told that Chrono's friend Luca has unveiled her latest invention, a time machine. See, I told you, didn't I? Marl jumps in the time machine, everything goes wrong, Chrono jumps in after her, truly beginning the story of Chrono Trigger. This is one of the things the game is best known for, the time travel. Yes, you start in the year 1000, also known as the present, a time period with normal RPG aesthetics, but not too far from the real world to keep it from feeling like a pure fantasy setting. Shortly after, you travel to the Middle Ages, a more fantastical time period with knights and castles and a war between humans and monsters, and a talking frog. The distant future, a time when all is lost. The few humans who remain are cold and starving. Those lush forests seen in the present and Middle Ages, they're all gone. Everything is a desolate wasteland. Prehistoric times, with cavemen, dinosaurs, and a conflict between humans and reptiles, lizard people, in a Pangea-like supercontinent. Then there's antiquity, sort of an Ice Age era, where most humans live on the frozen surface, while those adept in magic live above the clouds, on a floating continent known as the Kingdom of Zeal. That's important later on. It's that variety between each time period that makes the time travel stand out, because each one is not just a predetermined segment or a selected area of the world. No, the entire world changes completely in each time period. All the time periods feel complete. There's things to find, there's magic locked chests that you can't open yet. They feel lived in, further establishing that each one is important not only to the story, but to the characters. That's why the time travel is so celebrated, because of how varied it makes the game feel and how much weight it gives to your actions as the player. Of all the time periods, the last one to discuss is the end of time, sort of a hub world between all other time periods. As you go on, different gates start opening up around the world in different places. These all bring you to the end of time, and from there, you can go to any gate you've previously visited. At the end of time, you can save, you can heal, you can unlock magic for most of your characters, you can talk to the old man under the lamppost Gaspar, though he doesn't give you a gift, and you can even fight the final boss. What? Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. What else happens in this game, before the final boss? Well, shortly after Marl got lost and Chrono jumped in right behind her, you remember, that happened a minute ago, they find themselves in the Middle Ages, 400 years in the past. After a bit of exploring, you find your way to Guardia Castle, standing in the same place it did in the present, clearly demonstrating early on how time travel will work in the game. When you enter the castle, you come to learn that people are confusing Marl for Queen Lean, claiming they look exactly the same. Some weird things happen in the church nearby, and when you return to the present, after saving the real Queen Lean, mind you, Chrono is arrested and accused of kidnapping Princess Nadia. Now, this whole segment is the reason why your actions at the fair earlier are important. Because at this point, they become court evidence. Did you steal the old man's lunch? Did you wait for Marl to pick out her candy? Did you help her first when she bumped into Chrono? Or did you grab her necklace first? Whoops. Regardless of the outcome though, Chrono is found guilty and thrown in a dungeon. But soon after, you leave your cell, fight a dinosaur tank, and continue on your way. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the other aspect Chrono Trigger is best known for, and rightfully so. The thing even people who haven't played the game know it for. The art style. Akira Toriyama acted as the game's art director, celebrated for his work on the Dragon Quest series, and something called Dragon Ball? It's his masterful style that makes the game stand out. All the characters are so expertly designed and feel unique in their own way,
But it isn't just the character designs that are amazing. So many battle scenes are astonishing. The backgrounds for the big fights, like the one for the dinosaur tank I just mentioned, are beautiful. And those combat animations, even the basic ones, are amazing. There really isn't any animation that I can point to and say it looks off. But then the PS1 version took it a step further with various fully animated cutscenes that are gorgeous. They perfectly show the world, they perfectly show the characters, and if it wasn't perfect already, they just look so...
I ran out of words to praise this game with. And I haven't even formally introduced the characters yet. I mentioned how great their designs are, but there's so much more to them.
Chrono, the silent protagonist and player insert from the present. He wields a katana and lightning magic and is pretty much the strongest character in the game. Luca, brilliant scientist and Chrono's friend who loves machines. She fights with a ray gun and fire magic and teaches you how to save the game in Xenogears. Yes, this is also true. Marl, secretly, but not so much anymore, Princess Nadia of the Kingdom of Guardia in the present day, who snuck off to the Millennial Fair and met Chrono. She fights with a crossbow and strong water magic. Robo, a robot from the future, who we later find out is actually named Prometheus. He was created to assist humanity and punches things in combat. Frog, previously Glenn, a knight of Guardia in the Middle Ages who abandoned his kingdom and hid after losing his friend Cyrus and being turned into a frog. He fights with a Masamune, his old sword that broke in two and was repaired by Melchior. Not exactly a gift, but nah. Ayla, leader of Ioka village in prehistoric times. She and her people are at war with the Reptites. She fights unarmed as if she were from Final Fantasy II, which is to say she's strong, not that she's a bad character.
And this is the thing I find most impressive about Chrono Trigger. All the characters are great. None of them stand out as a Rico or a Kimari. It's one of the best RPG casts I've ever played, along with Xenoblade 3 or Persona 3. More importantly, when it comes to combat, they're all worth using. Well, most of them. Having said that, how does the combat work?
Well, one would expect it's similar to other Squaresoft games of the time. But it really isn't. Because while there is still attack, magic, there's a few key details that set it apart from everything else at the time and even today. To start, there are no random battles. Instead, you can always see the enemies on the map. Almost always. You can walk past them if you don't want to fight.
But not fighting them would mean missing out on one of the best combat systems of the Super Nintendo, if not of the genre.
As it starts, your characters and the enemies get into position using the current area you're on as the stage. As with the other two Final Fantasy games on the Super Nintendo at the time, Chrono Trigger uses the ATB system. Once the bar is full, you can select your action. But one of the things that sets this game apart is movement. Although your characters can't move freely only by being pushed or thrown by the enemies can move, and you need to use their positioning to your advantage. Characters have techs, the skills or arts of this game, that can hit multiple enemies, and some of these have predetermined AoEs, like Chrono's Cyclone attacking all enemies in a circle, or Luca's Flamethrower hitting all enemies in a straight line. This gives immense importance to the risk versus reward of timing attacks, considering when to hit the A button to maximize the damage dealt. Keeping a close eye on the enemy's movements is key to understanding the combat. It keeps you in there, it keeps you focused on each battle, and they all feel different. You can just mash the A button or use the auto attack on modern versions, which I'll admit I did, but the game definitely incentivizes you not do that. But hey, how come the tech option is saying combo now?
Well, as the characters fight together, they grow closer. Think like supports in Fire Emblem. Eventually, they learn these special techs to do with another character, and these are called dual techs.
Once both characters are ready to act, the action can be selected. consuming both ATB bars as well as the specified MP for both characters. Now this is the best thing about the combat in Chrono Trigger. And later on, you unlock triple techs, where all 3 party members come together for a single attack that, for the most part, hits all enemies. Of course, with the same requisites. All the combos are so good. They're strong, they're interesting, they're flashy, and more importantly, they add another layer of implicit storytelling through gameplay. The bonds between your characters. In most other RPGs, your characters don't really interact directly in combat, aside from casting heal or things like that. Closest thing that comes to mind is Steiner and Vivi's sword magic in Final Fantasy IX. Here, they fight together, sure, but they fight together. They help each other fight, make each other stronger. Well, all of them except for Magus. I may have bent the truth a little bit earlier. There's a 7th character that I omitted, and that's Magus. That vampire-looking guy who starts out as one of the main antagonists, but he joins the party soon after. While he fights with a sickle, his magic is the strongest of all party members. However, his biggest downside is his total lack of dual and triple techs, so I don't generally use him. Magus aside, it's thanks to the combos that these characters, despite being different people from different times, joining forces feels natural, because they all have a common threat and the same goal: to defeat Lavos. Okay, wait. There's one thing I forgot to mention. The music in this game is perfect. The battle theme gets you ready for whatever fights are ahead. The boss theme is fast, so you're on your toes at all times. The church theme is soft and mysterious, letting you know things are not quite what they seem. But the best track, by far, is Wind Scene, the overworld theme for the Middle Ages. It's somber, but it's so hopeful at the same time. I love this track. Okay, sorry. I had to go on that tangent. So, shortly after you arrive in the future, the party finds a computer that shows the world as it used to be. And slowly, a sea urchin-looking monster crept out of the planet's crust, wreaking havoc in the year 1999. Just like me. This event is the reason why the future is the way it is, because Lavos coming out from the ground destroyed the world. In a way, it was the apocalypse. Continuing the story has you learn more about the history of Lavos. In the distant past, you learn how Lavos arrived on an asteroid that hit the planet and burrowed deep inside it. This is why it's been there all along, how it has affected each time period, and more importantly, each character. It's everywhere. It's affected everything, and now you as the player know it's a threat. In the Middle Ages, Magus tries to find a way to summon it back, with ulterior motives of course. Lastly, we learn why the floating continent in antiquity is no longer there. I mentioned before that a segment of the population of antiquity, the one that isn't adept in magic, lives on the surface, but why is that? The people of the Kingdom of Zeal used the Mammon Machine, a device that allowed them to use magic through the power of Lavos, yet again showing the player how vastly powerful it is. The machine powers up Marl's pendant. You know, the one I picked up before helping her? Yeah, that one. And this new power lets you not only open up those magic locked chests from earlier, but you can now open up the way to the throne room. Once inside, the Queen captures the party and imprisons them in the old Mammon Machine room, since it's now in the Ocean Palace. Shala helps them escape and sends the party back through time, locking the gate she used, effectively leaving no way back into antiquity. That gate Shala used took the party back to prehistoric times. But where can we go from here? We can't go back to antiquity, the gate's closed. Oh! We can use the pendant to get a bunch of those magic chests, or that one door. I don't remember where it was. Oh. Thanks, game. Fine, just go over to the Keeper's Dome in the future. When you're there, and you go to the back room, there's a few sparkly bits on the floor left behind by Balthazar. These are a sort of summary on the history of Lavos and talk more about what it is. At the end of the hallway lies Balthazar's greatest work. The Epic, the airship of this game. Now this is a gift. Hey, at least one of them got you something. You did put the grass under your bed, right? That was the longest walk for a short glass of water. Anyway, now that you have the Epic, you don't depend on gates anymore. You're free to travel wherever you want, including antiquity. Once you return to the year 12,000 BC, which I just noticed means there was a Christ in this game. Anyway, the main goal is to make it back up to the Kingdom of Zeal, but that's not exactly easy right now. Instead, after saving Melchior, he mentions we need to go to the Ocean Palace, where the Mammon Machine currently is. Using her daughter Shala, Queen Zeal brought forth the Black Omen, a giant floating fortress hidden inside the planet, and by bringing it back, she brought something else back. Lavos. And this isn't some fake-out fight, no. This is the actual fight from the end of the game. And, of course, you lose. But this time, you don't game over like you would in any other fight. No, you actually lose. As the party is down, Lavos prepares one final blow to wipe them out completely. But before he can do that, Chrono gets up and takes the blast, saving everyone else but dying in the process. This is that other moment of Chrono Trigger, along with the trial, that every reviewer makes a big deal about. Because Chrono didn't just die and everyone carries on, no. He's dead. Chrono died. Like, permadeath. He's gone. After that moment, he is no longer in your party. So, where do we go from here? Right? The game's not over. What's left for us to do? Well, after seeing the Kingdom of Zeal fall down to the surface, you're free to do whatever you want. You can travel to the end of time, go into the bucket, fight Lavos and beat the game, congratulations. But why would you do that when there's so much more to do? Like, for starters, doing each character's side quest. Now, it's no secret that I am not known as a enjoyer of side quests. Ever so slightly hypocritical, I know, but all the character quests are worth doing. Not just because of the rewards, which are good, but because you get to see more of them. You get to see why they are the way they are, and you get to resolve some of the conflicts of their respective pasts. Frog's quest has you bring peace to the spirit of his friend Cyrus, restoring honor to Glenn as a Knight of Guardia, and upgrading the Masamune. Going to the future with Robo, you learn the real reason he was created. Marl's quest gives you a choice of some of the best equipment in the game. Luca's quest shows you why she's into machines in what's possibly the most tragic moment in the game. But of course, the real side quest everyone wants to do first: getting Chrono back. After doing a few things, the guessing game guy from the fair, you know, the one who laughs like Kefka, yeah, that one. He conveniently, and creepily, might I add, has a Chrono doll that looks exactly like Chrono, you know, just not alive. Anyway, with it, the party goes back to an instant before Chrono died, swapped him with the doll, letting the doll get the full blast of Lavos' laser thing, thus bringing Chrono back to life. And with that, all the character quests are done. Chrono's back, everyone has great equipment at this point. We're ready to end the game, right? Fight Lavos, save the world, and call it a day? Right? Were we talking strictly about the Super Nintendo version, then yes, now's the time to end the game. But we're not, are we? No, we're talking about the modern version, with those great additions I mentioned. Haven't talked about those, have I? For a reason. The Lost Sanctum. The Lost Sanctum. The Lost Sanctum. This is painful. This whole segment was added in the DS version and is why I said I do not recommend you do that, for the most part, before. It's this kind of side quest that makes me hate doing side quests. Right at the end of the game, just to pad it out, stopping you from finishing by having you run back and forth, and back and forth, doing the same thing ad nauseum. This new cave opens up full of reptites in the distant past and in the present. In there you get a bunch of quests, and they're all relatively simple, but they all have you traveling in time over and over again, way too many times. It's awful. And most insultingly, it is not worth it. Seriously, there is no point in suffering through the Lost Sanctum aside from completion's sake. There is no reward that makes me think, oh yeah, I didn't waste my time doing this. The return on investment simply isn't there. I cannot stress enough. Unless you absolutely must go through it, do not bother with the Lost Sanctum. So now we can progress the story, and it feels like it's been so long with all that running around, going back and forth. But we are pretty well leveled now. We have pretty good equipment, so we might as well just finish the game already. The next step in the adventure, though optional, is the Black Omen, probably the longest dungeon in the game. Ideally, you want to go through it at the earliest time possible, though if you enter it too late, you'll find you can't actually go inside. The game essentially tells you by this time you've lost. There's a few fights along the way, but eventually you reach the end of the dungeon where you fight both the Mammon Machine and Queen Zeal herself. They're not exactly difficult fights. Frankly, at this point very few fights could be, but who's counting? You win both times and the Black Omen crashes into Earth, opening the way to Lavos, this time once and for all. After all that, the first phase of the final boss begins, the sea urchin looking one, but the real target is the little mouth in front. Again, simple fight. Once it goes down, you can proceed into Lavos, ending up in Lavos World? Sure. Following the river north is where the final fight really truly begins. The first phase is whatever this Pokemon looking guy is. This is the true form of Lavos. Okay, it's not a bad fight. It's phase 2 that's a bit more complicated. The Lavos core stands in the middle with 2 bits to the side that attack and heal, and most annoyingly, revive each other. When you take one down, and spoilers, it'll be the left one over and over again, the other will bring it back shortly. The main enemy in this fight is essentially the right bit. It has the most HP of all 3 enemies, so most of the attacks will be directed at it, and some to take down the left bit every time it's revived. Though it's really not worth attacking the core because the bits will just heal it, so why waste your time, you know? Once both bits are down though, the time has come to attack the core. and it doesn't even come close to standing a chance against the party. Now then, Lavos has been defeated. For real this time. The characters return to the Millennial Fair on the night everything started. There's blinking lights, there's dancing, it's a celebration. But as is always the case, all good things must come to an end. Shortly after the party arrives, it's time to say goodbye. Using Luca's original time machine, different gates are opened up for each character, that isn't from the present of course, and they say a few words before going back home to their respective time periods. Once the last one goes through though, everything is settling down. Until Chrono's cat jumps through the gate, his mother follows it, Luca reveals she still has a method of time travel, and off they go on one more adventure. So while the game has ended, these characters' stories haven't. The credits roll and one more beautiful animated cutscene plays, sort of an epilogue showing what happened to the characters. Chrono and Marl get married, as do Ayla and Kino. Frog recovers his human form and becomes a knight again. Luca, walking through the forest with a tiny robo, finds a baby, and that baby is supposed to be Kid from Chrono Cross that I still haven't played. Alright. And with that, Chrono Trigger comes to a close. And what a game it's been. I cannot believe it's over. Because it's not. The modern version has a post-game. After being booted back to the start menu, opening the same file you beat Lavos in will show a short scene with these different purple gates opening across time. You can go to them in any order you want, each one taking you to a short dungeon and at the end a different shade boss. In antiquity, the Frozen Mountain has the Alabaster Shade in the shape of Marl. The facility in the future houses the Crimson Shade, or Luca. Lastly, the volcano in the present has you fight the Steel Shade, Chrono. Once you're done with all three, the bucket at the end of time shows you one new option, Time's Eclipse. Selecting it takes you to the new big boss of the post-game, the Dream Devourer, another Lavos that feeds on thoughts and dreams and memories? Okay, entering Time's Eclipse, there's a future version of Magus trying to take on the Dream Devourer on his own in an attempt to rescue his sister Shala. Of course, he can't, and it's up to the party to defeat the Dream Devourer. It isn't a difficult fight really, same as the last few, just use your strongest techs until it goes down, but this time, right at the end, the Devourer fires a laser that knocks out the party, but right then, Magus shows back up, shares some words with Shala, and then gets warped away into an unknown forest, which is also meant to be a Chrono Cross reference, but I still haven't played that game, so I don't get it. And now, for real this time, that is Chrono Trigger. Genuinely one of the greatest RPGs I've ever played. That is a pretty cold take, all things considered, but what else did you expect? The extra content on the DS version really isn't that great. Plus, all the Chrono Cross details, they flew well over my head, because I still haven't played it. So, but I cannot express how excellent this game is and how masterfully it's held up. And it's partly thanks to this game that Xenogears exists. So that alone makes it one of the greatest games ever made. I love this game so much. And hey, maybe one day I'll get around to playing Chrono Cross as well. I mean, it's the sequel. It's a PS1 RPG. I love those. It's important to the story, probably, so why not? Maybe one day. We'll see. Thank you all for listening to me rant about a game that I love, and... Oh. Future me just bought me a mansion!